Welcome back to the Empire State Sports Show.
What up?
I don't know what that was.
We're back.
I saw Tommy do something.
Back at it.
Okay. I am your host, Stacey Carter II, joined by Tommy Rooney and Teddy Caputo. I kind of like this episode in the sense that it's continuing on what we were already talked about, what we ended with last time.
Yep.
And that was Pete Alonso.
Yep.
We was talking about, if it ain't the Mets, where is he going to go next? What money should he sign for? Well, it turns out that he's going back to the Mets on a 2-year deal worth $54 million. The Mets are now complete. They got their spirit guy back. We all said that about him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, are the Mets, with Pete Alonso back in prime position, to overthrow the Dodgers and take over the National League?
All right, so like you just mentioned, the Dodgers are still in the National League. National League will go through the Dodgers. I feel like the Mets definitely getting their glue guy back in Pete Alonso. Like when you get a new player like Juan Soto and you're trying to go on a championship run, I feel like it's important to have that leader in the locker room and it not have to immediately just be a guy that wasn't there last year, because that's already a lot of pressure to perform. But then to also be like the guy who's the locker room leader, I feel like that's a lot to ask of Juan Soto. So I feel like getting Pete Alonso back is big for them. I don't think it's a needle pusher to the point where they're better than the Dodgers, though. I also feel like the Phillies and the Braves are going to have something to say about the NL as well. And, watch out for the Pirates. Who knows what could happen? Just got Tommy Pham yesterday. But, in all seriousness, I feel like the Dodgers and the Mets are probably going to be in the NLCS when that time comes. Maybe the Nets have enough to get it over the hump. I feel like they're both going to be really good teams, and I think that this was a good move for them. And obviously, like when we said last week that they stopped having negotiations because the money wasn't right, they were able to give them enough to come back. So I think it was a good move by the Nets.
I would say that as far as the Braves, Ronald Acuna is going to miss some time at the beginning of the season. So that's their spirit guy right there, too.
Yeah.
So that might affect them going forward.
For sure.
But I can, like you said, you can't count out the Braves, can't count out the Phillies, but the Mets are looking good right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that on the offensive side, with the bats, they're ready to take over. I mean, they have a pretty stellar lineup with the power of Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. We all have been saying it. He's their spirit guy. He can get the rest of the locker room going. They have Francisco Lindor, Starling Marte, who didn't really play much last year, or at least missed some time.
Pirates legend, Starling Marte.
Oh, yeah. But he's going to be back in full form, we think. And they got some other guys that are coming up too that, can get on base. So they'll definitely put up runs this year. But I think my concern is with the pitching, because they've lost quite a bit of pitching. They did lose Luis Severino to the Athletics. Jose Quintana is still in the free agency. They lost several guys in the bullpen to free agency as well. Adam Ottavino, Phil Matan, and Drew Smith. So they really got to make up for, I think, what they're lacking right now on the pitching side. Now, there are some people in the free agency they can make moves for. Jose Quintana being one of them, they could bring him back. They could also go out and get Patrick Corbin and Clayton Kershaw. These are guys that are still available on free agency that maybe are not as worth as much as they used to be worth, but bring that depth and experience to the starting pitching rotation that they're going to need, especially to try to make that late postseason run. However, I think the Dodgers, to your point, are trying to bring Clayton Kershaw back because he is such a historic part of that team, even if it's in a lesser role, say, in the bullpen. So I think that's a big focus for them going forward, the New York Mets, especially to compete with those teams that you were talking about, Tommy. But it is ultimately a huge move for bringing him back because he is the spirit guy for the team. They actually just released a video out on social media kind of putting him in the same league as those Mets legends, Mike Piazza, David Wright. So he's very special for the city, and they're very happy to have him back. I'm glad that they were able to do it for the sake of the spirit of the team. Yeah,
and I'm going to echo the same thing you said. On paper, especially in the batting things, they look good. Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, there's nothing more that needs to be said about that. But like you, I am concerned with their pitching. Jose Quintana, like you said, is still on the market. Luis Severino is gone. They're going to have to step up from within, seems right now. Right now, I think their ace is Sean Manaea, who had a 3.7 ERA. Not bad, but now he got to play a little bit more on the ace level. And speaking of that, going down to that rotation, David Peterson, who won 10 games last season, has to step up and take that number 2 role. That's the one concern. Injuries always concern, but that's the one concern I got for the Mets. I don't think if you place them versus Dodgers, I don't think their pitching can keep up with the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers will still have the advantage, and then other teams also still have the advantage too as well as far as pitching. But I think with Pete Alonso back, they are going to compete. They have a great shot of winning the NL East. Same thing with you. I don't see them beating the Dodgers right now.
Yeah.
And you know what's the thing too? You mentioned the Dodgers pitching being deep. Shohei Ohtani, they have him signed long term,
coming back,
and he could possibly be coming back this year as a pitcher.
Yeah.
So that just makes the Dodgers even scarier because we saw how Shohei was just as a batter. Now you bring him back as a pitcher. Oof, watch out.
Let me ask you. You said Clayton Kershaw is still on the market.
Yeah.
If you're the Mets, are you thinking about that?
Yeah, like I like Teddy said, it might be in a lesser role, but I feel like if you can get a pitcher that is one of the best pitchers of all time, you go get him.
Yeah.
And especially if you're trying to win a ring, I feel like that's something that he would sign up for. Obviously, he just got one this past season, but I feel like he'll probably prefer to stay in LA. And like Teddy just said, also Shohei coming back might play into that decision for the Dodgers. Like they know that he's coming back, so if Kershaw's requesting too much money, then maybe they're like, all right, well, we got Shohei coming, so we don't necessarily need you to come back. So that could be something that happens, but I feel like they should try to bring him back for sure.
I always thought that Clayton Kershaw was going to go to the Texas Rangers because he's from Texas. I think he is actually from Dallas or close to there. I think they should just go after Patrick Corbin rather than Clayton Kershaw, a little bit younger guy. I think right now for Kershaw, it's like Dodgers or bust.
Yeah.
You know? But I think the Mets will be fine going to the season. Now, let's move on to the NFL. Let's go to the middle level. The Hall of Fame class of 2025 has been announced. Eli Manning was a finalist in that class. However, he did not get elected to the Hall of Fame. We all know about his resume, won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants, up there in passing yards and passing touchdowns for us all time. However, some people will point out that as far as his record in the regular season, he's literally 500, dead even, wins and losses. The question is simple. Since he didn't get the nod this year in 2025, should he make the Hall of Fame in the future? What you think, Terry?
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment that if you take away the Super Bowl performances, he has a 500 record. His stats are not stellar. I wouldn't see him making it. However, he is 2-0 in this Super Bowl against the greatest winning quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. And the only other person to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl is Nick Foles. And gosh, that was just such a historic run for the Eagles, them getting their first Super Bowl. So I guess in that regard, Eli Manning is deserving. I mean, he played very well in those playoff series and in the Super Bowl. And so I think for that reason alone, yes, he should be. Do I think he's like a shoe-in, like first ballot? No. I mean, that's why he didn't get in this time. But I mean, come on. If you beat Tom Brady twice in 2 meetings in the Super Bowl, then you should deserve a chance at the Hall of Fame. Not even Patrick Mahomes, who a lot of people are saying is going to be the best quarterback of all time above Tom Brady, he couldn't do that himself. So I think so.
So let's put Nick Foles in the Hall of Fame too.
He's definitely going to be in the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame.
He's 1-0. He's undefeated against Tom Brady.
Yeah. He's definitely in the Eagles Hall.
Yeah,
they have a statue of Nick Foles outside of the stadium. So,
Wait, they do for real?
Right?
Him and Doug Peterson, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So he's already etched into history one way or another. So.
But yeah, I mean, like Teddy said, to me, it's no brainer. Like he's 100% going to make the Hall of Fame. I think that the reason why he wasn't a first ballot is because he was never the best player in football. He was never an all-pro. He was never like, oh, this guy's like in the level of like Mahomes, like best player in the league, best quarterback in the league. Like he was never in those discussions. He did win 2 Super Bowls. He won 2 Super Bowl MVPs. And I think that you can't, like, when you look at the history of the league And you tell, especially like the last 15, 20 years, like history of the league, like the story of what's happened, those Super Bowl runs are like a major piece of that history. So I don't think you can tell it without Eli. So I think for that reason, he's going to make it eventually. But like I said, I wasn't very surprised that he didn't make it last night. First ballot Hall of Famer is supposed to be like, you are one of the best players in the league for majority of your career. And while Eli was like always a solid winner, I don't think he was ever better than Big Ben. I don't think he's ever better than Drew Brees, Tom Brady, like Peyton Manning, his brother. Like obviously those guys were the like last generation of quarterbacks. And now we have the new generation of quarterbacks, and I don't think he's better than any of those guys either. And I think that he will probably make it next year or maybe the year after that. But again, first ballot Hall of Famer is supposed to be like the top guys. So,
see, I don't mind Eli making the Hall of Fame because if you look at his stats, let's take away his 2 Super Bowl rings. If you look at his stats, he's top 15 in passing yards. He's top 15 in passing touchdowns, even above some Hall of Famers.
yeah.
So stat wise, he's up there with the greats. But I think if he makes the Hall of Fame, I beg the question, does that open the door for other borderline quarterbacks? I'm talking about Michael Vick, who was a trailblazer in the NFL during his time. Talking about Matt Ryan, who has an MVP. Eli doesn't have that. He has an MVP. He went to the Super Bowl.
Rings, though. Like rings are the ultimate thing that we judge by.
Yeah, but also you said Eli lacks accolades too, personal accolades.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I feel like having an MVP, though, like, doesn't. And, like, did Michael Vick win an MVP? I don't know. Like, Michael Vick was insane. And things would have been different if not for circumstances that he was in, like, that he put himself in.
The fact that Matt Ryan won, the fact that Matt Ryan won MVP, that means he was among one of the best players in the league. Yeah. And then, speaking of ring, Matthew Stafford got a ring, and people want to question whether he's a Hall of Famer.
I think that one is going to be a one that I'm not convinced either way of. Because if you look at the first 10 years of his career loser. And then obviously he had an incredible run with the Rams that year. So does that make him a Hall of Fame quarterback? He has numbers because he's played for a long time. And that kind of plays into the Eli thing too. You said he's top 15 passing yards. Like he's had a long career, whereas guys like Michael Vick, like he missed a few years. And then towards the end of the career, he wasn't like a starter anymore. So I feel like that kind of helps in that regard. But for me, like you got to have at least one ring to even be in the conversation. And Matt Ryan should have one ring right now, but he doesn't.
He definitely should.
And if you don't have the ring, then you need to have some sort of accolades. Like, let's just take Lamar Jackson, for example. He doesn't have a ring yet, but he's a 2-time MVP. He was voted first team All-Pro this year, and his stats have been off the charts. So it would be kind of crazy if he didn't become a Hall of Famer. I mean, I guess really the only way is if he just really didn't do anything over the next few years, which I'm going to find to be very hard to believe that would happen. But like Michael Vick, he was a trailblazer. But again, I think the injuries and controversies will kind of overshadow him a little bit, but he did set up the next generation of quarterbacks, like basically the Lamar Jacksons and players like him. But then you got to look at quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was never a winner, but he always had good years. So I can't remember off the top of my head if he won any major awards. I don't think he was ever MVP or anything like that. So that's the thing. Like if Eli Manning wins gets in the Hall of Fame, obviously he won 2 Super Bowls against Tom Brady to back that up. But it depends on if that opens up doors for other people. I could see someone like Matthew Stafford getting it because of that ring. But someone like Phillip Rivers, who probably has better accolades than Eli Manning stat-wise.
Which he does, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know because, again, he never got that ring. And he didn't really have much playoff success either, Phillip Rivers, that is.
Yeah, but also with accolades, with Super Bowls, storyline matters when it comes to Hall of Fame. For me, at least, like at that time, what impact did you make on the league? And I think that's the argument that goes against Matt Stafford, at least, because Detroit was just a hellhole for many, many years. Mm-hmm. I still hate how they did Calvin Johnson, but at least on that aspect, Mike Vick should be a Hall of Famer if Eli Manning gets in. Because I think Eli Manning is like the kind of like the cutoff, like the middle. Like Eli Manning, if somebody's better than him, then they should more likely get in the Hall of Fame. But if you're worse than Eli, then you probably shouldn't be.
It's like not a perfect way to measure it, because it's like if you look at a guy like Calvin Johnson, he never won anything either, but he's one of the most dominant players in his position of all time.
Yeah.
It just happened to be that he played for a bad team. But then if you judge Matthew Stafford by that same metric, we kind of blame it more on Matthew Stafford or hold it against him more for some reason.
Shouldn't.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's just how quarterbacks are judged. Ultimately, like that's just how we look at it. I'm not saying it's right, but like a guy like that plays defense or a skill position player, for whatever reason, if they have like crazy statistical seasons consistently, we're like, that's definitely a Hall of Famer. But for quarterbacks, if they don't win anything like Phillip Rivers, then it's like they're not a Hall of Famer.
And two guys in this class, Antonio Gates and Jared Allen, they literally fall into that category. They didn't have great postseason success either. They never won a ring, but they were producing on the stat sheet year after year after year, and were dominant in that position.
Yeah. Well, Antonio Gates was a top. Yeah, it's a top 5 tight end all time. Exactly. And he was just under Tony Gonzalez, who I think nobody's beating out but Travis Kelce, as far as greatest tight end of all time. So he has that for him.
Yeah. No,
Eli doesn't have that. Like, when did we say Eli was a top 5 quarterback?
Well, that's what I'm saying. But we don't judge Antonio Gates not winning anything, though. Like we're like, he was one of the best tight ends ever, so he's definitely in the Hall of Fame. And I know that Eli wasn't one of the best quarterbacks ever, but because he got rings, it's like, well, he led them to get those rings, so now he's a Hall of Famer. So it's just different levels of judgment.
It is.
But I will say those Giants teams did have some really stellar defense.
Absolutely.
Like they stopped the best quarterbacks.
Strahan, Justin Tuck.
Yeah. And Antonio Pierce.
So,
anyway, I would just say the last thing I'll say about it is if Eli Manning didn't win those 2 rings, he probably would fall in the same class as Phillip Rivers, who, by the way, they were flip-flopped for each other after draft day.
Did y'all see his face? Did y'all see that video of his face when he got picked by the Chargers? He was like,
he knew he wasn't going there. He told them before, I'm not playing for real.
Yeah. So, but he would fall in the same class as Phillip Rivers, which at this rate, it's very uncertain. I don't think Phillip Rivers will.
I don't see Phillip Rivers going.
I don't think I'll make it.
Yeah. And that's where Eli would be if not for those 2 rings.
Right. Well, I agree with that. If he did,
those rings.
If he just had 1 out of 2, would you still put him in the Hall of Fame?
Eli?
Yeah.
That'd be the same like Matthew Stafford debate. Because like a lot of years they were below 500. So it's like
you could, because that's the thing, like going back to Nick Foles for a second, like a lot of people could say like, oh, like it was just like a fluke, like they just had that year, right? So if Eli Manning won 1, it would be the same thing. Oh, it was just a fluke, like he had that year, and we had a great defense behind him. And like we said, both years, both Giants defenses were great. But the fact that he got there twice and beat Tom Brady twice makes more of a statement.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily a fluke.
Let's go to the last level. Speaking of quarterbacks, Josh Allen at the NFL Honors took home the MVP, which was almost kind of expected. People thought that Josh Allen was going to get it.
Was it expected though?
I mean, he was at least top 3.
Yeah, he was. I thought he was 2, but I didn't think he was going to get it. I was shocked.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. Let's just talk about now that he has the MVP. What else do they have to do? What's their game plan for the offseason? First of all, let me start this off. Lamar Jackson should have won the damn MVP, not Josh Allen. His stats were way better than Josh Allen's. And if it wasn't going to be Lamar, it should have been Saquon Barkley. Come on now, 2,006 yards.
Yeah,
but
let me just say this really quick. So I thought last year Lamar Jackson should not have won the MVP. He's great, but his stats last year were just not, in my opinion, MVP level compared to some of the other guys.
Wasn't better than Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
He should have won it last year.
I agree with that. I think McCaffrey should have won it last year.
Exactly. But this year, absolutely, Lamar Jackson definitely had the stats because his year this year was way better than it was last year when he won the MVP. And I think that's the issue I'm having with this MVP award is because it's a regular season award, but they didn't really award it until after the playoffs unfolded. So you can make the argument if the Ravens beat the Bills in that game, Lamar would be getting the MVP.
But they said
they had to turn it.
They had the votes in before
I don't know why they wait this long to do it, but
yeah. What makes you think though, right?
No, I hear what you're saying. Just before we get into what the Bills got to do, I feel like the reason that I don't understand this more than anything is they announced first team All Pro a couple weeks ago. That means the best player at every single position. It's only one player for quarterback. And that happened to be Lamar Jackson. And that same group of voters that voted on that votes on MVP. How are you going to pick Lamar Jackson as the best quarterback for first team All Pro, but then pick a different quarterback for the most valuable player in the league? That does not make any sense. So, and if you look at it by purely stats, like Teddy said, and like you said, Lamar had the best stats of any quarterback, 40 touchdowns, 4 picks. That's insane. And then if you look at it, it's like, okay, it's not all about stats. It's about winning. Then Mahomes is the MVP because he's the most valuable player in the league in terms of winning. So then it's either Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, but we're going to give it to Josh Allen for some reason. It's like, I get that you lost Stephon Diggs, and a lot of people said that they weren't going to be as good because of that, because they didn't have a true number one wide receiver. And they still ended up being really good. But that doesn't mean that you're just automatically more valuable than people who had better years than you statistically. And like Mahomes had a better record than you. And like, I feel like the Josh Allen winning this year was purely voter fatigue. Like, I feel like they have already given it to Lamar twice. They didn't want to give it to him 3 times in a row. And I don't think that's a fair thing to do when you're giving out awards that mean this much. It impacts players' legacies. It impacts their financial, like the salary contracts. Like, it impacts a lot. And I get that Josh Allen's really good. Like, Josh Allen is top 3 quarterback in the league, but he's not better than Lamar Jackson in 2024, 2025. And I hear what you're saying about Saquon. Unfortunately, like, they just don't give running backs the respect that they deserve. And I feel like there's a higher chance that he would have been in that actual, because I feel like it was really just between Lamar and Josh Allen at the end of the day. Like, Saquon was third, but I feel like he would have been more in that conversation if they let him play that last game and he broke the record. Because then he's like, I did something that's never been done. So then they have that to factor in when they're like, okay, he should be the MVP because of that. But again, like we all said, I think it should have been Lamar. And like, if you like look at what he did last year and then he got better, it's like, how did I win the MVP last year, but now I got better and I didn't win the MVP this year? So I really just feel like it's voter fatigue.
That's crazy. And I will say Lamar Jackson definitely got punished this year for winning last year. Because again, I think he should have won based on the stats and the ability to perform. But again, like, looking at Saquon Barkley's year, and we're talking about most valuable player. The Eagles were not bad last year, but they definitely struggled and suffered at the end of the year. You add Saquon to the team and you're back in the Super Bowl. So in terms of value, Saquon Barkley, to me, brings the most value to the team. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Tommy. I don't know why. Yes, I think it paid off, though, that they didn't play him because he was healthy going in and they're in the Super Bowl now. But he had a chance to make history. How many chances are you going to get to do that? Not many. Especially at the running back position where it's not really respected as much anymore. So anyway, I thought Saquon should have been considered a lot more than he was because of the value he brought to the Eagles team.
All right, now let's focus on the Bills as far as the offseason. I've been racking my brain about this ever since they lost the AFC Championship game. What else can they do to get over the hump? It reminds me of the situation Peyton Manning was in all those years going against Tom Brady in the playoffs. Just like, no matter how good the offense was, you having an MVP year, you going against a buzzsaw, a thorn in your side, you just can't beat them. And you just got to try to figure it out somehow. So in my notes, I wrote down a couple players that are on the trading block that maybe the Bills should go after. First and foremost, maybe they should go after Myles Garrett. He's unhappy with the Cleveland Browns. Von Miller is aging. They're going to need somebody at that pass rush, at the edge, that can put pressure on the quarterback, that can get to Mahomes somehow, get through their offensive line. And I think that's the perfect guy for that situation. A secondary player, and unfortunately, he's on the trading block. I want to cry, but I'm not. We in New York. New York is tough. Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, the Rams said they're going to trade him. The Bills kind of need number 1 wide receiver. I don't know how they feel about Keon Coleman right now exactly. Amari Cooper he's good, but he disappears.
He's a free agent too.
Yeah, he might not come back. In my opinion, I think he should, but he might not come back. What do y'all think? Do y'all like them going after one of those two players, or do y'all have something else in mind for the Bills?
I mean, like you said, I feel like it kind of reminds me of all those years with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry when the Raptors were like number 1 seed in the East and LeBron was like number 2 with the Cavs. And it's like, yeah, but when the playoffs come, LeBron's going to make it LeBronto and, beat y'all. It's like, it doesn't matter how good you are regular season. It's like that thing that you can't overcome. And I feel like the Bills, unfortunately, are kind of in that situation where it's like, they could look so good in the regular season. They can beat the Chiefs by 20 points or whatever they did in the regular season and be like, all right, maybe this is the year. But then it comes to the playoffs, it's like that crucial moment that just doesn't go your way. And I don't have like a magic fix. I think that if they knew what that magic fix was, they would have did it 2 years ago. I think that it starts with getting a number 1 wide receiver. Even though you had that with Stephon Diggs, I feel like there was kind of some locker room problems there that, we still haven't really figured out what that was, but clearly there was something for them to trade him. So maybe it's Cooper Kupp. The issue with Cooper Kupp is obviously injuries. He's been injured a lot. When he's at his peak of his game, he's a Triple Crown guy, but it's also been a few years since then. He's in his 30s. So you don't know if he's like still that number 1 guy. They kind of transitioned to Puka recently, the last 2 years. A guy that I think they should go after, I don't know if they will, is T. Higgins, because he's probably going to be out there on the market because the Bengals got to give Jamar Chase the biggest contract in NFL history, probably. So, T. Higgins probably isn't going to get what he wants from the Bengals. But personally, I do think that Myles Garrett would be a good move. I don't know what assets Cleveland is going to be looking to get back for him. I think the report was multiple first-round picks. Maybe it would be first-round picks and like a solidified star player. But that would obviously help their front seven. As a guy whose team is in the AFC, I don't want that to happen. We already have enough work to do to try to catch up to these teams. But at the end of the day, I think the Bills will still be a really good team. I think they'll still be in the semifinal round next year, divisional round. It's just, can they figure out a way to beat Mahomes? And I don't have that answer right now.
Yeah, can you solve that puzzle for the Bills in this offseason? What you think they should do?
Well, no, I agree that either Cooper Kupp or Myles Garrett are big moves that they should make. I think when you look at that game against the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, he had time to throw the ball. They could not get to him like they wanted to. And they thought that their magic fix for the issues they had in not getting to Pat Mahomes was Von Miller. But unfortunately, that has not been the fix. I think that position is the need where you have to fix, where if you get that true edge rusher, somebody who can scare the living daylights out of Patrick Mahomes, then then I think the Bills will have more success. Of course, Myles Garrett being on the Browns, he's not going to get that opportunity, or Pat Mahomes is not going to face someone like that in the postseason, not that often. But if he goes to the Bills, then that's a whole different story. But Myles Garrett is one of the best, if not the best, edge rusher in the NFL. And so
who the best is too.
Well, yeah, there's TJ Watt. He's very good. Even Aiden Hutchinson is a nightmare. And it is
Crosby too.
And Crosby.
Who also is on the block.
Exactly. And I was gonna say, if not Myles Garrett, then maybe Max Crosby is someone that the Bills should go out there.
Yeah, like
because he brings that same element to the situation. And plus, like, Pat Mahomes had nightmares going against Max Crosby. Like, that's the only reason why the Raiders ever hung around in those games against the Chiefs, is because of Max Crosby. So then putting him on the Bills would make it even a bigger problem for Pat Mahomes, especially going into the future. On the offensive side, though, Cooper Kupp, I agree with you, Tommy. He's getting older, maybe a little less reliable, but the Rams have moved on from him as wide receiver 1 to Puka. And I think Cooper Kupp felt that. I think Cooper Kupp wants to be in an environment where he actually is considered the true wide receiver number 1. And because the Bills don't have that true receiver 1, Amari Cooper, who is now a free agent. This is the opportunity for Cooper Kupp to become a wide receiver 1, playing with the formidable talent in Josh Allen. Cooper Kupp has always been that reliable target. Matt Stafford always could go to him, especially that year they won the Super Bowl. He needed an outlet, throw it to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp would get open. He's a great route runner, and Josh Allen needs a guy like that. And the Bills need a receiver like Cooper Kupp with the experience winning to then help those younger guys like Matt Collins, Keon Coleman develop.
Matt Collins is also a free agent too. So
Okay.
they're gonna have to.
A lot of that wide receiver room are free agents.
They're gonna have to make some decisions.
Yeah.
I think that they probably bring back Matt Collins, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Some of the other guys then, the Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir.
Yeah,
If he's
they still
there.
got
Curtis
Dalton
Samuel.
Kincaid at tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
young
it
tight
would be
end.
great to bring in Cooper Kupp in that regard. But in terms of the receiver position, like I guess the question for the Bills is, what are they looking for in a receiver? You know, are you looking for somebody who is that leader in the locker room, is that reliable guy that you can always get the ball to? Or are you looking for a deep threat off the play action? Because the Bills did establish their run a lot more this year. You know, if you're looking for more of a deep threat, then I would go with somebody like T. Higgins, because T. Higgins does bring a deep threat and he's a little bit longer of a target and a little younger too. So that's something for the Bills to consider. In terms of Cooper Kupp, though, I know that the Lions have heavy interest in him. There's been reports that Cooper Kupp is tied to the Lions right now on the trading block because of Jared Goff, because they used to play together and they already have weapons, the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown is their number one. I feel like in that situation, Cooper Kupp being a number two, a formidable number two, who would definitely get looks from Jared Goff, he would like that system. He would definitely see another opportunity to get a ring. That'll make it a lot harder for the Bills to pursue. But I agree with you, Tommy, and I'm sure Stacey, you do too. But Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp are definitely two people I'd be looking at if I'm the Bills.
That was the end of the Empire State Sports Show. Once again, I'm your host, Stacey Carter II, joined by Teddy Caputo, Tommy Rooney. Follow us here on YouTube and on Instagram. We will take a week off for Valentine's Day. One of us is in love, and they got...
I'm sorry that we're not gonna be here, y'all. I got plans, but we'll be right back the week after that.
And also, for extra footage, I gotta admit, I'm warming up to the garbage plate.
You're warming up
I'm warming up to the garbage plate. I'm sorry, Tommy.
You're alone on that one.
Try it.
I didn't try it, but as long as you can make it customizable. I don't want chopped up hot dogs and mac salad all in one, but
Then it's not a true garbage plate.
Let me say this. You guys in the comments on our video, you're the reason for this. You made it happen.
oh man, I'm warming up to it.
Keep up the good work.
We might have an episode where we just
Try it live.
Yeah, just try it. Yeah,
We'll
we
get
might
on
do that.
foods, the garbage plate, the Riggies, the buffalo wings.
Well, I want to walk away with my stomach intact. So we'll one thing at a time.
Try that and then go right to the bathroom.
See y'all next time.
Like and subscribe.
like it's.